Welcome to this explainer. All right, today we are tackling something I like to call the silent killer of SEO. It's an invisible threat that is likely siphoning away search traffic from your legacy content right at this very moment. Seriously, if you manage a content library that's been built up over a few years, this is arguably the single most underestimated risk to your long-term search visibility.
So picture this. Somewhere deep in your content library, you've got this workhorse of a page. It used to bring in steady, reliable leads every single month. You check your analytics, and suddenly, you realize it's losing ground. But here is the crazy part. Nothing dramatic happened. There was no big algorithm penalty, no massive SEO news headline, no glaring technical error on your end. The leads just kind of quietly dried up. So where on earth did your traffic go?
Well, the culprit behind this mystery is something called content decay. Basically, content decay is the silent, gradual erosion of your search visibility. It happens when a page just naturally stops being the freshest, most complete, or most behaviorally relevant answer to a query that it used to completely dominate. And the most dangerous thing about it, it never announces itself. It literally just shows up months later as a slow, sad decline in a traffic graph that nobody was watching closely enough.
To solve this, we're going to walk through a complete, actionable defense framework today. Our roadmap is 1. The silent SEO threat, 2. Why content loses rankings, 3. Triage, mapping content decay, 4. The structural integrity protocol, and 5. The 90-day defense cycle. By the end, you'll know exactly how to turn reactive firefighting into a permanent defense system. Let's jump in.
Section 1. The silent SEO threat. To really fix this problem, we first need to understand how modern search actually evaluates relevance. Because, spoiler alert, the landscape has fundamentally changed. Remember the old SEO playbook? It was pretty simple. Earn enough authoritative backlinks, and your rankings would hold steady almost indefinitely. You could just set it and forget it. But AI-driven search? It absolutely does not work that way anymore. Today, search engines weigh fresh behavioral signals, things like click-through rates, dwell time, and return visits, right alongside those historical backlinks. Search systems are essentially running continuous, live behavioral experiments on every single query to see what actually satisfies users right now.
It all boils down to this reality. Content now has to keep earning its position, continuously through demonstrated relevance. That means a page with incredible historical backlinks but totally declining engagement, yeah, it can and will lose visibility to a newer, maybe even less linked page that just does a better job of satisfying current user behavior. Link equity is just no longer a permanent guarantee.
Section 2. Why content loses rankings. Let's break down how this continuous comparison mathematically degrades your traffic over time. This isn't just a theory, it's a very measurable, very predictable pattern.
Take a look at the trajectory of this entropy curve. Let's say you have a piece of content ranking in the top 3. If you leave it completely untouched, newer alternatives are going to pop up. By month 6 to 12, you're looking at a 10 to 15% click-through rate decline. By month 18 to 24, your page has likely been pushed to page 2 or lower, which means you're approaching a massive 40% decline in clicks. The structural gap just keeps widening as your competitors keep adding more depth.
But here's the truly insidious part, the gradual bleed. I mean, if you saw a sudden 40% drop overnight, that would trigger alarm bells, emergency meetings, and immediate action, right? But a 2% monthly traffic drop, that triggers absolutely nothing. It just looks like normal seasonal fluctuation. And by the time that trend becomes totally impossible to ignore a year or two later, your competitors have already stolen the top spot and built up their own solid engagement history.
Section 3. Triage, mapping content decay. We need to shift away from just watching the decline happen and start diagnosing it early with a systematic triage approach.
Listen, you cannot wait for your ranking position to tank, because that is a lagging indicator. It's already too late. Instead, you've got to look for real-time leading indicators of competitive drift. Maybe your click-through rate is trending down while your overall impressions are holding steady. Or maybe new competitor domains are popping up in territory you used to dominate. You should pay very close attention to the loss of a featured snippet or an AI overview. Honestly, that's usually the canary in the coal mine, the very first visible signal of decay. And of course, keep an eye on rising bounce rates or falling engagement times compared to your historical baselines.
Now, treating every single page equally is just a massive waste of resources. So we sort these legacy assets into 3 specific buckets. First, your stable pillars. These have consistent rankings and really just need light touch monitoring. Then you have your sinking ships.
These are the ones showing clear declining trends that require a priority structural rebuild. And finally, whatever you do, don't ignore your hidden gems. These are pages with high conversion rates that are currently underranked. Hidden gems are almost always your highest ROI opportunity because they already convert. They literally just need a visibility boost.
The absolute most crucial point here is how you prioritize this triage list. You have to prioritize by conversion intent, not just vanity traffic metrics. I know the instinct is always to rush in and save the pages with the highest traffic volume, but a disciplined team scores candidates against their historical conversion contribution. Your priority queue should focus entirely on saving the pages that actually drive revenue for your business.
Section 4, the Structural Integrity Protocol. Okay, it's time to transition from the theory into the actual, actionable procedure of fixing the decay.
When it's finally time to fix a decaying page, please don't just pad it with a few extra paragraphs to bump up the word count. Search engines see right through that fluff. Instead, follow these 4 steps. Step 1. Re-engineer the architecture so the content answers the core intent within the first few hundred words. Step 2. Update your schema markup to meet modern voice and AI search standards. Step 3. Replace old, static, hard-coded data with dynamically updating elements so the page stops aging so fast. And step 4, reinforce your internal links. Make sure your newer content is actually linking back to this rebuilt page to flow some fresh authority its way.
Now, underpinning all of those steps is one vital concept: information gain. Search systems actively reward genuine update value. If you just go in and reword some existing sentences, you are not going to see a ranking improvement. Actually, scratch that, you might even see it drop further. You must add meaningfully new information to the internet. Things like specific case data, an original methodology, proprietary data points, or just deep domain expertise that generic AI content literally cannot replicate. Section 5, the 90-day defense cycle. So, how do we take all of this and turn it into a permanent, running, operating rhythm?
We use a 90-day cycle that catches decay before it ever has a chance to compound. Here's how it flows. You spend weeks 1 and 2 reviewing your signals and updating your decay map. Week 3 is for confirming your priority queue of sinking ships and hidden gems. The real heavy lifting happens in weeks 4 through 9 during that structural rebuild we just talked about. Once you're done there, run a quick gap check against current competitor content in weeks 10 and 11. And boom, by week 12, you publish, reset your baselines, and start the whole cycle over again.
I really need to give you a massive warning on this, though. Refresh work requires explicit named ownership. Without a dedicated owner, this 90-day framework will absolutely fail. Why? Because maintenance will always lose out to the strict deadlines of new content production. Someone on your team must own this cycle as their clearly defined recurring job, and they need the exact same accountability applied to them as the people producing net new content. You also have to redefine how you measure success here. A completely flawed success metric is looking for temporary ranking spikes right around the published state. Rankings can bounce around wildly when a page gets a major update. The true success metric? That's looking at the next 2 to 3 months to see a genuinely flattened decline curve. We're looking for long-term sustainability that protects your revenue over time, not just a brief, flashy spike that disappears a week later. Ultimately, you have to ask yourself and your team a really tough question. Are you just firefighting ranking drops when they happen, or are you proactively forecasting them? The most mature SEO teams out there don't look at a ranking drop as a surprise. They literally see it as a scheduled data point. By implementing the frameworks we've discussed today, you can transform your entire content operation from a reactive cost center that quietly bleeds value into a proactive, compounding growth engine. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go start mapping your own content decay today.